Ratan will join towards end of the meeting.
All right. So the live streaming is started. Thank you, Ryan, for the update. So Smita, take over, please. Thank you.
Sure. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya, and welcome to you. Welcome all. I want to first introduce, we have a good panel over here, and we are celebrating Savithribai Phule's birth anniversary. And what I want to do is I would like to introduce our panelists first, and then I would give them questions one by and which they can answer one after another. So we have three panelists: Dr. Manisha Banger, Dr. Shantha Sinha, and Dr. Vinayakala. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Manisha Banger. Dr. Manisha Banger is a practicing senior consultant, gastroenterologist, and transplant hepatologist with around 20 years of clinical research and teaching experience. And she's also a former national vice president of BAMSAFE and a very active Ambedkarite Phule activist. Shantha Sinha ji is an anti-labor activist. She is also a founder of MV Foundation, and she works in education sector. She is a professor in Department of Political Science at HCU. And Dr. Vinayakala ji is an academician, researcher, writer, and a former special officer based in Hyderabad. So with this, I would like to first pose my question. So my first question to you all, panelists, and you can take the question one after another, is why is the role of women central to annihilation of caste from Phule Ambedkarite perspective? And if I go by alphabetical order, I can, I want to ask this question to Manisha Banger first. Manisha Tai, are you able to hear us?
So it's integral to the annihilation of caste, the participation of women as well as the role of women, because the caste system, as you know, has been constructed in such a way that it kind of, the hierarchical system was constructed on two main pillars, and that main pillars are endogamy as well as penalties who transgress the endogamy. So, and then of course there were many more dimensions to it, but for paucity of time and to be able to quickly give an overview. So having said that, the endogamy literally was based on the sexuality of women, her choice of her husband, as well as where she can marry, where she cannot marry. And this was not only enforced upon her as an individual, but also through family, through society, through her own caste groups. So there was a huge mechanism and a huge machinery, which was societal as well as individualistic, as well as family and community, which was overbearing on her. Apart from that, it also was that she was kept away from education. She was kept away from empowering herself by keeping herself equipped with modalities by which she could revolt and rebel against that. Now, these were the things which were earlier available to her already. When we go into the pre-Aryan invasion time, these modalities were available to her. When, as well as speaking of and giving her own opinion was available to her. This were totally taken off right from the Vedic system and thereafter codified through the Manusmriti and other things. So the entire system for her to come out and her to keep herself as a very active member of a society which should have been casteless or which is a casteless society. This is the thing which was binding her or putting huge chains in her path. And to quickly sum up the whole thing, caste as well as patriarchy. So on one side, at a bigger level, the caste was constructed in which she was literally cornered along with the man, along with the Shudra and Ati Shudra, her own family people, the male persons in the family, the male of the community, the male of the society, of the Shudra Ati Shudra. That was one thing. And another thing was she was also enchained, enslaved by patriarchy in totality. So the caste and patriarchy both emanated from the Brahminical system, of which caste system, as we are talking of annihilation of caste. So that particular caste system also had embedded patriarchy as well as caste, the hierarchical system, the graded inequality, inextricably. They are two wheels of the cart. One could not go without the other. And therefore, to dismantle a caste system as such, or the Brahminical social order, you need to have an anti-caste orientation in which women is a very important participant, and of course, anti-patriarchal. And patriarchy is something which is not any innovation of the Shudra to Shudra, it's a Brahminical patriarchy. So Brahminical caste system and Brahminical patriarchy. That's how it is. And therefore her, knowing that she is the main instrument through which it could be executed, she was in bondage, and the entire paraphernalia was created around her to subjugate her totally.
True, very true. And if we read Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's thesis, which he wrote when he was at Columbia University, we can see how patriarchy becomes the foundation for caste system. And as Dr. Manisha Banger was saying, endogamy and so on and so forth is also written. And I would like to pose the same question to Dr. Shantha Sinha. Why is the role of women central to annihilation of caste from fully Ambedkarite perspective?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I must thank Dr. Manisha Banger for stating so clearly the link between patriarchy and the prevalence of caste system. First of all, let me tell you, when we get to patriarchy, it is specific to all kinds of society, cutting across class, cutting across regions, cutting across rich and poor. But what makes it very damaging is when Dalit women have to face multiple layers of oppression, and the way it acts on a Dalit woman is very, very different from the way it acts on other women belonging to other communities. You know, it's discrimination, caste discrimination, it is poverty, and multiple layers of oppression that makes it very difficult for the Dalit woman to combat caste oppression and to combat even patriarchy. So I think she has to have a fight at many, many fronts before caste entanglement, you know. And so it is so important that one will have to, as Dr. Manisha says, a combination of both fighting caste hierarchy, a Brahminical order, and also by fighting patriarchy. Otherwise, I think the Dalit woman is is to fight both caste and patriarchy, and of course through the topic that we will be discussing today, through education.
Sure, absolutely. As you rightly pointed out, Dalit women are Dalit of Dalits, is what we say, because they face multi-level of oppression, and it is very important, as you rightly pointed out, that if we want to break caste system, we have to also confront patriarchy within our society as well. Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to pose the same question again to Vinayakala ji, to Dr. Vinayakala ji. Why is the role of women central to annihilation of caste from Phule Ambedkarite perspective?
Yeah, first of all, Jai Bhim to all. Thanks for organizing this wonderful session. Like to talk upon on Savithtribai's Phule's birth anniversary. Yes, to talk upon the, talking from the Dalit perspectives, particularly from Dalit women perspectives, as Manisha and, Shantha Sinha has rightly pointed out, how the women have been deliberately excluded from certain facts, when we talk about the women and gender, taking the mainstream feminism, particularly the policies which has been designed in concern of the women, where actually the Dalit woman has been excluded from that certain areas. Because the things which we have, which the women, the Dalit women, particularly the women from the oppressed communities, falls under the areas of the exploitation. There was multiple facts of the exploitations which has been imposed on the women. How a visual violence, violence against the Dalit women, verbal violence, violence near the work areas, and these were the particular things which we has to be focused. Being as an intellectuals from the oppressed communities, we have to look upon these issues, and how to get into the policies, how we can get into the policies where we will get space from the mainstream feminism as well. So this is the one thing which I thought of, talking here in this platform. Yeah, is it audible?
Yeah, and now you're audible. So as you rightly pointed out, Dr. Vinayakala, that it is very important for Dalit women to find a place in the mainstream politics, as well, or in the mainstream feminism as well, because Dalit women, as you rightly said, are more vulnerable, more exploited. So for them to fight against multi-level of hierarchy, it is very difficult. And that is why, from Phule Ambedkarite perspective, to annihilate caste, we need to create a space for Dalit women to flourish and be successful. Yeah, that is very true. And my next question would be, so in the current scenario, even though we see many Dalit women are getting educated, but I do not see many women leaders. And what do you think is the reason? Why do we not see many Dalit leaders, especially in equal counts? Because men and women are 50-50, but on a given stage, on a given platform, any day, apart from this stage, because we are celebrating Savithribai Phule's birthday. But other than this, we hardly see women leaders. And why do you think this is the case? And how can we motivate them to be more participative in social upliftment? Because education is one area that probably, even though we have overcome, we have not seen the social upliftment. So I would again go in the same order, or if anyone wants to go and answer this first, then please go ahead and do so to one of the panelists. Okay, Dr. Vinayakala ji, you have raised your hand, so please go ahead. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Vinayakala ji, you're muted. Host, can you please unmute her?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. This is a very valuable question. Yeah.
Vinayakala ji, we are not able to hear you. If you would.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I think sometimes video streaming eats away a lot of bandwidth. So you can go ahead and talk right now, but sometimes we are not able to hear you. So in that case, you might want to switch off the video as well.
Okay, fine. Now it is okay, right?
Yeah, now it is okay.
Yes. It's a very valuable question which you have asked, how the leadership has been missing out from the Dalit women perspectives. If we take the example of Savithribai Phule itself, in spite of she being as a poet, she being as a teacher, first women teacher, and she being as a humanist and, liberator and many things, and from the main curriculum of the design policies of the state, she has been missed out, right? So this is the one thing we have to think today, in spite of celebrating her birthday as the Teachers' Day, which has been denied by the state, right? I'll tell you one fact, her death anniversary is on March 10th. We can not only celebrate the Teachers' Day on her birth anniversary, but we can celebrate at a time three kinds of things. That is, a Teachers' Day on the name of Savithribai Phule, Women's Day on the name of Savithribai Phule, and Women Liberation Day on the name of the Savithribai Phule, which has been missing out. Yeah, in this kind of scenario, what is our responsibility to we getting into the media is again a challenging question for us. We have to point out, and we have to, today Shantha Sinha madam, she is from the higher education department. Manisha, as a community holder, we all, somewhere or other, we are working for the same kind of things. We have to include whatever the ways we can, showcase ourselves and our leaders in forefront. That is the kind of thing which we have to collectively work and bring into the focus, and where mainstream media or mainstream feminism or whatever it is, they're biased. That's why our state is a casteist state. So in this scenario, we have to collectively work and we have to do our best till our last breath. Yes.
True. I mean, I completely agree with you. Even though we are getting educated, if we don't portray our women leaders as actual leaders, then you don't see many followers. So our education system is not inclusive of the women leaders, and they are not setting up any examples for others to follow. That is a very valid point, and that is why you think there are not many women leaders. So I would pose the same question again to other panelists on why do we not see many women leaders, even though we are seeing that they are getting education?
Ma'am, please go ahead.
You want me to say?
Yeah.
Sure.
I will answer after you. Yeah, please.
I almost feel like I'm sitting through a PhD viva. Because the format itself is very challenging, I should say. And it's set me thinking. First of all, let me tell you that women's role in politics, the denial of women's space in politics is there, cutting across, again, let me say, all classes and castes and communities. I do not know if you look at the parliament, if you look at the assembly, if you look at many of these statutory forums, where are the women? I mean, even those who are supposed to be endowed with social capital, cultural capital, even they have not been able to make it. I think we will have to accept the fact that patriarchy is default ideology. I mean, it is there. We have to accept it. You can't deny patriarchy. It is there. While saying this, I'd like to be a bit more positive. I mean, when I look at the way the elections to the Gram Panchayats have been held, and there have been reservations for positions for SC, BC, Adivasi, for women in many states. In the beginning, of course, it was proxy. The upper caste would proxy for the women, or the husband would proxy for the woman, but it is no more like that in many places. Women have exercised agency, women have asserted themselves in spite of the fact that they have not had as much of education. They have learned to fight and to take up issues which men have never thought of taking up. They took up issues of welfare, they took up issues of health, education, water, not brokerage, not roads, all kinds of male stuff, but really caregiving stuff which women are capable of. And I think that we will have to acknowledge the role of reservation at the Gram Panchayat level, which have made women more articulate. We will have to acknowledge the role that women have played in many of these micro self-help groups, where they have exercised agency to fight alcoholism, to fight. They've solved all the problems. Forward from there and celebrate and then, as again Vinayakala has said, present them in the media, present them as our new heroes whom we would emulate, because it is not easy for a Dalit woman to become a leader. If she has become a leader in the village, it is against all odds. It's not the same as a non-Dalit woman being a leader. And if she has done it, then I think it is her politics, her agenda to be inclusive, her agenda to assert herself that the Dalit are important in the village. If you didn't care for us, the village is no more there. I think we'll have to showcase the politics of Dalit women to be able to showcase what leadership and democracy is about.
True, very true. I completely agree with you, Shantha Sinha, that patriarchy is real, and it is very much a part of our society. And even though from top down, we don't see as many women leaders, but as you said, because of reservation and because of education, and at times, even without education, women from bottom up are able to raise themselves, but it's mainly because we don't see it in the media. We are not able to recognize them as the leaders, but very true that from bottoms up, there has been certain resistance to patriarchy that is coming up. So, and this resistance is very, very important for us to make a note of, because this is the resistance, these are the kind of things that also help in breaking the caste oppression. So I would like to now pose the same question to Dr. Manisha Banger.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to, more allude to something which, to answer this question, something which takes us to the model of, or the question which Eric Fromm had asked. So, and it's really very important for the entire Bahujan Samaj, the SC, ST, BC and the minorities. Women leadership is a very, very important area. Now, Eric Fromm asks, freedom from and to what? I mean, like, you want representation of women, but for exactly for what? That is important. If your women representation, or you want women political leadership to execute exactly the same role that the kith and kin of Savarna Dvij women have already been exercising, and you want women just to be there, in numbers. So from what are you going to leave off, and to where are you going to go? And that is exactly where the real representation of SC, ST, BC women matters. You have, because I have contested the 2019 MP election from Nagpur, and to tell you a fact that right from for the past 60 or 70 years, Congress and a few more other prominent national parties hadn't given a candidature to women a woman for almost 30 years in consecutive, literally in a row. So when there was a prominent woman who was coming, it was a gap after. Prominent means educated, a postgraduate, a well-educated, a person who has a societal knowledge, who has a movement background. There was a gap of almost 40 years or so. I had written an article also on this, and it was highlighted in media as well. So that is the most important thing. If we take and when I have to answer that, from where to what, exactly to what, do what, and then we have the lack of icons that are given or shown to us. So, and we, the women and the men also are exactly thinking from the Savarna Dvij party mode. So you would want a women's cell, or you have many BC, Bahujan organizations who have wings, Mahila wings, and women's cells. In parties, there are women's cells again. So you have a cell, but that's not exactly how it would work out for the SC, BC people. If you want to have a transformation, transformating icons is something that where Savithribai Phule becomes very relevant in that case. So we want women like who are like Savithribai Phule, or who are following the ideology of Savithribai Phule, or her work pattern, or her life struggle, or her way, the way she overcome all the struggles. And then literally you see a pretty revolutionary stance that Savithribai Phule takes in each and every sphere. Now, restricting, I don't want to talk about her as a poetess or educationist or a teacher or whatever, but this is exactly what has been highlighted all the time. It has never been highlighted that Savithribai Phule was the organizational head for almost 25 years after the demise of Jyotirao Phule. That is never highlighted. That a woman can head an organization, Satyashodak Samaj, that too, in a place like Maharashtra, and almost up to the northern parts of Karnataka and the southern parts of CP and Berar and Gujarat. So it's such a wide area, and she handled the entire men organization for almost till her death. So that is never highlighted, that she was an independent person in herself, and she was a socio-political person in herself, is never highlighted at all. That she was not only an educationist or somebody who was challenging patriarchy, within the patriarchy, also challenging patriarchy also in the Dvij Savarna terms is a very restricted and a very compounded area. So she was going beyond that all the time. I mean, I don't have the time to elucidate how each and every area she was going beyond that. But taking into patriarchy, then, in her own poems, she says that if the animals can, the man and the woman can work together, why don't the men and women work together in real? The male and the female, why can't they work? And then not only that, she is challenging the Brahminical supremacy. She tells, don't believe the Brahmin, because they are the ones who give you the notions of every kind of leadership and everything that the way you think. So she goes beyond and beyond and beyond. And we are never shown this. On the contrary, the way the pedagogy is getting developed, the way the things are getting developed around Savithribai Phule, she is highlighted only as an educationist and a school teacher and the first teacher. That is all. So iconization and the way they are projected in front of us, it's also very important. I do not want to keep this responsibility on the Dvijas and the Savarnas. This responsibility is of the Bahujans themselves, the SC, OBC leadership and their own intellectuals to bring it forth in this way and to also execute it. So whereas we see Savithribai Phule as a surgeon, she's dissecting each and every area. So we want women to be able to do that. We want women to be able to do that. And that is the true empowerment. Secondly is that when we see her as a person, if we define a release from patriarchy as so inherent for annihilation of caste, then that is almost as equivalent as being a part of a freedom struggle. It's emancipation, and if that is so, then this emancipation is it's a kind of a struggle, which it's a freedom struggle. So these two areas are never shown to them at all. And it's not that we do not have women coming from the SC, ST, OBC who are going into the established political parties. They are, but what are they doing? What kind of how are they being trained within the organizations and the movement? There is no training whatsoever. They're exact copy of the Savarna women or the Bahujan men who are in political parties of the Savarnas. And that doesn't serve any purpose to the Bahujans at all. It doesn't emulate Savithribai Phule herself in any way. Forget about anybody else. So having said that, we do not want political representation of women who ask for the representation of the women in the politics, 33%. But as the Savarna and Dvij women, you take CPI party, you take any Congress party, you take the BJP or any other political party, they want 33%, but they do not want 85% quota for the women over there. So if our women, SC, ST, BC women are going to say the same thing, then of what use is their political representation over there? It's not only numbers. Being the social organizations and political organizations, I have worked for almost 2 decades. Arey, ye topic pe ek woman ko bhi rakh do bolne ke liye. There is nobody on the stage, so a woman ko bhi adjust kar do. If this is the attitude, then what kind of women leaders will you have? Thirdly, when the woman rises in the organization, socio-political organization, and especially if she has all, it's not about 1 or 2, innumerable. Then now we have many of them, but they are very, very easily scuttled. They are sidelined. And from where have the Bahujan men learned all these tricks? They have learned all these tricks from the Savarna men, and they do exactly that. So I totally would want to flout out the concept of Bahujan patriarchy or Dalit patriarchy or whatsoever. That is a figment of imagination. I do agree. And I don't want to go into the depths of it. It's Brahminical patriarchy, which is playing itself. But the Bahujan men are very well adept to adopting very conveniently, something and leaving out something. So this diabolical attitude will not be of any use. So we have to have women who will be asking very uncomfortable questions, who will be empowered in the real sense of the word, and who will be dissecting and will be giving a true representation, which actually amounts to freedom of the women from patriarchy, freedom of the men and women of the Shudra, Ati-Shudra communities from caste, both.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha, for explaining. And I completely, again, agree with you that when we present Savithribai Phule from 1800 as an icon, we don't talk much about her struggles, how she used to take change of clothes because she every day faced a challenge of being thrown cow dung or being hit by stones on her, and she still persisted and became, as you rightly said, she was like a surgeon where she was dissecting Brahminical system and became head over there. So we don't talk about that. And the second point, very truly mentioned, is how Dalit or Bahujan men have become adept to Brahminical patriarchy. And we have to break this at some stage. And we are not able to see that that difference between how Brahminical men exercise patriarchy versus how Bahujan men exercise their patriarchy. It's almost the same. And it is the responsibility of Bahujan men, if they call themselves as Ambedkarite Phule activists, to break away from that, right?
Sorry,
So-
Smita, I would like to correct myself. If I have communicated, I do not say, and I want to again reiterate the fact that Brahminical patriarchy is the patriarchy in play. There is nothing such as Bahujan patriarchy, and I don't say that the Bahujan men emulate in totality. What I mean to say is
Right.
that, yeah, being the victims of the system, the critical hinge points where they should be at work, they are totally avoiding it. Okay. And because that's a Dalit patriarchy, that terminology which has been bought out, it's a figment which has been exercised by the Savarna women and the Dvij women for a long time. And this is the right time and a very awakened time to break it. And we should be doing that. The Bahujan
Right.
women should be doing that. Having said that, the minimization, the convenience. Let me quote you an example, and I'll finish my sentence over here. For example, when the Dvijas celebrate Savithribai Phule, they wouldn't mind highlighting her as the first teacher, but they will have a lot of inconvenience, and they will hide the fact that it was the Brahminical society which was putting cow dung on her. Whereas we don't have any, we highlight that particular point very well because we know that who were the obstacle creators. Okay. So this highlighting of convenience and hiding of convenience, this is something they are doing. When it comes to the same thing, then the patriarchy or the so-called, the Bahujan men also want to highlight her, the fact that she was put to count dung upon and she was hounded upon and she still rose about. That's fine with them because it is convenient to them. But they do not want to highlight the fact that she was a woman and she ran the organization for 2 decades. And she was printing, she was publication she was handling, she was going to village and village. They don't let their women out of their own house. They don't let their women go to the other district to educate the other women over there. So when will they learn what Savithribai Phule did in her whole life? They want to hide according to their convenience and highlight according to their convenience. And both the parties are guilty of it. That's what I wanted to carry forward. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, for anyone confronting their own privilege is a challenge, I believe. And for men, patriarchy is present, and confronting patriarchy is important, even being Dalit Bahujan man. And we still see a lot of exceptions. We still see a lot of men who are confronting it and who are overcoming it, making sure that there is women participation, making sure there is child and girl education. But then again, we cannot just rely on exception. I think it should be embedded in each and every Bahujan man. I see a hand of Dolly Arjun raised up. I will come to questions, but from participants. But first, we are asking questions to our panelists. And my next question to our panelist is, so now that we know that this is a reality, but we have to overcome this reality. So how can we collaborate across generations and communities, breaking the barriers of gender to annihilate caste? And I think I'll, because Shantha Sinha ji has not gone first, so I will, ask this question to her first if she wants to answer this first. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I will share some of the experiences we've had in getting adolescent girls to schools and in actually fighting the values of patriarchy and going through girls' rights. Now, one thing I must tell you, I mean, I'll have to take at least 2 to 3 minutes time. I hope you don't mind that.
Take your time. Yeah.
You know, because I'd like to share something that is happening. I might tell you that the girls are doing better than boys among the Dalit communities in terms of education today. And this is what all statistics and data have shown. I'm saying they're doing better than boys in terms of the rate at which they're accessing education. Even though on the whole, many more boys have completed 10th class, but the rate at which the girls are reaching to 10th class is far faster than ever before. This is just to talk about the aspirations of the Dalit minority, Bahujan children, especially girls, for education. And that they are moving so much ahead is because they're fighting patriarchy. They have faced barriers at every level within their family also. Yeah, and here I would like to express, because I'm not very clear about whether patriarchy of the Dalit family, I don't want to define it as Dalit patriarchy or Bahujan Brahminical patriarchy, but certainly these girls are facing patriarchy. And there is a situation of conflict at every moment in their lives. You know, the division of labor in a poor family where the girl has to sacrifice all her time and space before she can even get into the school. And at every step, there has been a block in her path. In spite of which she is reaching up to 10th class, in spite of which she is competing. This conflict has to be resolved in her favor. This conflict has to be resolved in favor of her mother and her right. And this conflict has to be resolved in a fashion that the family becomes a family, the girl becomes a girl, the mother becomes a mother, and not slaves to a patriarchal family. You know, and that is what we are trying to do, educating the brothers, the siblings, educating the father, telling them gender equality cannot be compromised. She has to be given time to study, just as how their sons are getting time to study. Sons are going to private schools. The families are sacrificing a lot to send him to a private school, and to the girl, they send her to a government school. In a way, it's a blessing in disguise, because the girl is doing better in a government school in her mother tongue and also is learning English. The boy goes to an English medium, not able to cope, and is dropping out of school. But coming back again, girl is not only fighting in her family. A Dalit girl is fighting stalking, sexual harassment at school. And in the school also, she is made to sweep the floor. She is made to clean the toilets. She is made to do all the menial tasks, whereas boys do nothing. And the teachers also are so deeply ingrained in these values that they think it is natural for a Dalit girl to do sweeping of the floor. So one will have to educate the teacher, saying this is simply no. And they will have to find somebody to do that who will sweep the floor. And if they really are in grave difficulty, they have to get the boys to sweep the floor. Girls are already doing it in their homes. So what I'm saying is there's a pervasive practice of gender discrimination of girls, especially girls, in every space, in the public space, at the bus stop, at the market, at everywhere. She feels it's not her space. She feels insulted, she feels humiliated. In spite of it, she's making it to education. You know, I think that is, and here we will have to see her strength in exercising agency, to fighting at all fronts, and to make it to school. But then what the government is doing is that it's not giving enough supplies of schools, enough supplies of teachers. After the lockdown, let me tell you, the plight of these girls is absolutely miserable. We have gone back to patriarchy. They're no longer able to fight. they're subject to child marriage, they're subject to violence, they're subject to sexual harassment, they're subject to child labor. Truckloads of children are working on farms, all the girls who should have been in school, who had aspired for higher education, who wanted to complete and break a cycle of poverty and deprivation. These girls are now suffering. And I think somewhere we have to use this platform to say that, look, enough is enough. Start the schools for girls. They have these KGBV schools open. They get the girls to come there. And we have seen newspaper items that for 1 week there was no food for these girls. Would they do it if it were their own children? You go all the way to the hostel, you wait for the hostel to open, you go all the way, there is no food, there are no, and the rice is some 3-year-old, 2-year-old before COVID with all insects. Is this a kind of humiliation these girls will have to be subject to? I think we will have to sort of raise the question of girls and education. I'm sorry, I'm digressing from what you're actually talking about, but I think there has to be some anger, and anger should not be left there. It has to be converted into action and a moral indignation to say that girls cannot be treated like this. In fact, all the schools get their salaries because they are teachers of Dalit Bahujan children. Where are the other children going to government school at all? It's our children who are going to government schools. It is our children who are going to government hostels. It's our children who are going to KGBVs and residential schools. And all the salaries for whoever, the staff, is in the name of our children, and you don't take care of our children. What is this nonsense about? And these children are fighting. I can tell you one more thing. I've seen case after case in small towns like, say, Suryapet, Warangal, Nalgonda. A house is taken, a room is taken on rent. 5 girls live there. They attend 10th class, 11th class, 12th, not government hostels. An old aunt is sitting there and running the kitchen for them. They work during vacations. They work on Saturday and Sunday to buy their clothes. They're working so hard. Who's caring for them? I think we will have to raise the voice of girls' education. I know women's rights are important, but let's talk about girls and their education. They're doing so much that sacrifices you cannot count the kind of sacrifice poor families are making for girls' education. And I think it's time we talk about girls' education and to see that they're fighting every day. This is where I'm saying they're exercising agency. And we will have to respect them and their path for education. And that has to be the agenda, especially post-COVID times. I'm sorry, I digressed. I didn't go back to your question, but I think there has to be some kind of a indignation about what's happening to our children, and especially girls.
And thank you so much for raising a very, very important point, Shantaji, because unless there is education, there is no next generation leader, right? So you very much answered the question. And first of all, I completely agree with you that girls not just face especially Dalit girls or Bahujan girls, not just face one obstacle, but there are obstacles everywhere. And they were trying to overcome these obstacles, still get educated, going to government schools. But because of COVID, we will see that a generation of women probably just getting married or just becoming laborers because the government is not opening schools. And it is a fact that many people, many others who are privileged, they can have phones and they can access education to some extent over internet. But the most affected are Bahujan girls who don't have these accesses and who are forced into unwanted jobs or unwanted marriages because of because of COVID. And this definitely is affecting our next generation leaders. So a very valid point and very concerning at this stage. And definitely we need to form a team and act on it. I would again like to pose the same question to our other panelists. How can we collaborate across generations? Because I was talking about generations, meaning, I was looking at the older generation as well as the younger generation to come together. And how can how can our communities break the barriers of gender to annihilate caste?
Yeah, I absolutely accept with the Shantha Sinha madam what she has rightly pointed out. Like girls' education is very important. I'll say one example in this regard. When I recently attended a conference that is like empowering adolescent girls from the oppressed communities that has been organized in Chennai. Like in that conference, I was really get shocked of the way of conference which has been organized and the paper presenters, the way they have organized to empower the girls, particularly from adolescent, from the
Vinayakala ji, I think because we are not
Yeah.
able to hear you,
Yes.
you can stop your video just in case.
Yes. So recently in that conference, like it was so shocking that like everybody was saying that like to nobody is not saying that like getting an education for an oppressed communities girls. They were all talking about the like establishing an organization where like they will be kept away from the rapes, like they will be kept away from the violence, and they'll be kept away from lots of situations which was happening in the current scenario, right? And like mine is the only countering paper. Is audible?
Yes, very much audible. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, so it's mine is the only countering paper in that conference, saying that like why why the people were thinking about like establishing the organizations. Why you are not thinking, being as an intellectuals from the like stage, you're not thinking about the education of the girls, particularly from the downtrodden. And like I was talking about the
Vinayakala ji, I think again are not able
I
to
have
hear.
little bit of problem with my signals because it's raining here.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying them, like nobody was talking about the education. So I took the example of the residential pattern as well, like where, like the girl will be getting an education at the same time, like getting a secured life, and she's getting minimum kind of amenities like food and shelter and all those things. But in spite of talking and taking the education as the main concept, but everybody was denied to give an education for the like a girl from the Bahujans. So it is so saddest part to be part of in that session. So when
Vinayakala ji, are you able to hear us? I think Vinayakala ji is having trouble with her internet connection. But I get her point, again, about education, which she is trying to point out, that we talk about other things, but we are not talking about Bahujan girls getting educated, and residential model, residential schools, government residential schools in Telangana have been a great model. And I personally have seen, I have attended I have attended one of the sports event at residential school, and I was stunned and amazed to see how girls were talking in English, how they were asking intriguing questions, and they were very active. So I think, but the sad part is the Telangana residential schools model, we are not able to emulate them anywhere else. So overall, if you look at overall India, girl education is still a big problem, and it is more of a problem because of COVID now, because now girls are not going to schools. It's easy for parents to get them married off, or as Shantha Sinha ma'am has already pointed out, it's easy for them to become bonded laborers or go into other activities which are not foreseen, and that would again affect them. I think Vinayakala ji is back. Do you want to go ahead?
I think it is very unstable, my connection is. So,
Sure.
yeah, that is the fact, it is very disturbing in that conference as well. So it's better let the other speaker continue.
Sure. Okay. So I would ask Dr. Manisha, how can we collaborate across generations and communities, breaking the barriers of gender to annihilate caste?
I guess the focus was on education, annihilation of caste and gender. Of course, we have already highlighted and underscored its importance. What I basically want to communicate and tell is that the importance of education for among the SC, ST, BC communities, it has a history of almost 100 and more years. Okay. And each time, whether it was through the Saint movement or all the icons that we have, whether Dr. Ambedkar, Periyar, and then we have Savithribai Phule, of course, and then we have many more in the north and in the south. So all of them have all mostly impressed upon education being the most important tool. And the community has accepted it, it has worked on it, it has tried to go follow the path, despite all the obstacles as a community. But what has happened is that whereas this was, and it was the entire thing was also enshrined within the constitutional framework, and many safeguards given to this community, constitutional safeguards, along with that scholarships, and then residential schools and support and many more schemes and midday meal scheme, everything has been done to enhance the participation of the SC, ST, BC students, or so-called, or women or girl child into the educational framework. But still it has not happened. So that is where the question occurs. And when it comes to why it has not happened, the entire system and the way the narrative is constructed, the way the consent is manufactured and the narrative is manufactured, it has been seen that the past 70 years, the narrative has come upon to lie upon the family itself. That it is the responsibility of the family if the girl is not working or if she's not able to go. And it is the patriarchy within the family or the community which is not able to make it, and therefore the changes have to occur there, that the brother has to be educated and the father, or the brother and the father himself is entirely, he's in deep in poverty, they are falling ill, there's a health debt which they have taken, the people are dying every other year, there's a death in the family. And it is not only the girl who has been restricted to not to go to the school, it is the boy within the family also who has to leave his college or whatever he is doing, and he has all up together basically. There may be some plus minus here and there, and then the only thing which remains for the girl child is that because there are other obstacles within the school is not within the 5-kilometer radius. Now, whose responsibility it is? Is it the community's responsibility or the family, or it is the brother or the father's responsibility? It is the state's responsibility. The state is not executing its responsibility, and that is where, and the policy making framework is where it has to be acted upon. The media is creating the narrative. The cinema, the popular culture, you have the cinema, you have the entire Telugu film industry. If you talk about Savithribai Phule or you talk about the Hindu Code Bill, they will say that what is the need of the divorce? Do we have to change husbands as if we have to change our clothes every time, as if we are changing 4 seasons? Now, these are the questions that women themselves pose. So where is the mental slavery which is acting, and who is causing all this narrative to cause the mental slavery? This is where it is. So, especially when people talk about education, Swami Agnivesh, he is highlighted as a major person of taking people away from child labor and asking them to educate. He says that the entire responsibilities of the father in the family. Or if father is sick with TB, the daughter will have to go accompany her mother to the domestic work. How will so where is the priority? But the question has to be asked, are they able to prioritize education? They are not. The followers of Ambedkar, for whom the entire gamut of thing is there, that they would rather not eat one time, but they will go to school. But even if they are ready to not eat one time and want to go to school, they are not able to go to school. That is the main problem now. So this is where the action has to occur. Swami Agnivesh and his likes, they have put the entire responsibility on fundamental right, and then we have to say, if somebody is responsible, put the father responsible and the brother responsible. It's not like that. It's not so. It's not patriarchy which is acting over there. It is the state structure, the patriarchy which is constructed all throughout continuously, and there what is acting is the caste. It is the caste dominance, the caste presence, the high caste presence in the various public policy making places, in bureaucracy, in media, in cinema, in everywhere, and that is how it is making it possible for them. Say for example, the National Education Policy 2020, what is the kind of policy they have made? Instead of taking the school which should be near to the girls or within the community or within that neighborhood, they have taken it farther away. And they have created more obstacles in our path. How is the father in the community also, or community leader also, how is he will be able to solve this particular problem? The entire 50 years of his life will go in solving this problem only. You take the example of midday meal, they are supposed to be they have to give them protein. Now, the policymakers have said that dal has protein. Dal has no protein. Now, who has to be told? Isn't it a cultural problem? Isn't it a societal problem? Isn't it a Dvij and a Savarna upper caste dominance problem, who are dictating what kind of food these people have to eat, what kind of food the midday meal scheme will be getting? They aren't even giving eggs to them. So where is the problem? Well, the gender disparity, if at all there it is a reflection of the dominance, of the casteist dominance which is exerting itself. So this motivational speaker kind of a thing, I really don't like. I would not want it. That make the victim himself responsible for whatever they are going through. No, it's not like that. The problem is somewhere else, and all of them together have to. It's both the genders and the community and the casteist dominance, because Savithribai Phule, it's not that she was against patriarchy only. She was, if at all she was against Brahminical patriarchy and Brahminical dominance. And we have so many articles and so many poems in which she says that the British is even better, as long as the British is there, quickly, try to study as much as possible. Will she be branded as being unpatriotic? No, that is patriotism for us. So we don't have to go in according to the definitions and the labels of the dominant narratives. So it is like that. And we have the policy making at the governmental level, at the lobbying level, at pressure groups, at political level, and changing the system culturally and socially it's a multi-pronged process. But then the community also has to act on all these processes. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you. I concur with all the three speakers who have said education is very, very important for Bahujan women. And Savithribai Phule started along with Jyotirao Phule started schools 175 years ago. So they were the first Bahujans to start. And we still face this challenge of getting Bahujan girls or even boys educated. And the problem is becoming more and more complex rather than getting solved now. So I completely agree that unless the problem of education is solved, unless there is right to medicine, unless there is real right of education, cannot be even practiced. Because in US, if you see within 1 or 2 mile radius, we have at least couple of schools. And then we talk about the quality of schools, public schools, in the sense schools by government. But here we do not have schools at all. If there are no schools in 5 kilometer radius, then then the accessibility itself is difficult. So it is definitely the responsibility of state as well to interfere and to get these things across. There are no hospitals within 1 or 2 kilometer or 5 kilometer radius, and there is no and then people are not able to access or the poor are not able to get access to medicine. So how are they have then many girls are forced into child labor because of the conditions the family is also facing. So that also needs to be accounted for. That is definitely true. So now my last question to all the panelists is, now that we know that these are our challenges, what are the steps that we should take, or what is the takeaway from this call, or what are the actions that need to be taken by us as a community to overcome our challenges, to get educated and to make Savithribai Phule proud?
Yeah. Yeah, what are the challenges, like we have to take up? This is the very important thing. So first point, we have to, like set up the vision for this thing, like according to the Savithribai Phule and all Ambedkarites, like Periyar, like if we take Narayan Guru, everybody talks about, like empowerment of women and women education as well. And, like as the Ambedkar quote, which has been very rightly pointed out, the progress of the women is the progress of the community is measured by the women, which women has achieved. That is the very important thing which we have to think. And like the challenges once we have to set is the vision, like what exactly we have to work on, what is the stream, like what is the target group, like in that, like we have to take the education as the priority. And like next after education, like we have to collaborate with certain organizations and government departments, like where, like people will be get educated. And later coming from that fact, then we can also, so vision has to be very clear. And next part is we have to set a goal setting as well, like what exactly we have to look into. That is very important. And later on, like we have to do a plan of action for that. So based on these things, we have to educate our women in many areas. It is very unfortunate to say that. I'll take few examples of the women who have completed the graduation and post-graduation from our communities, where they have still lack of knowledge of the higher education. It is very saddest kind of thing. And like they doesn't know how to enter into the higher education institutions. So this is the one of the mainstream area. After primary education is one of the important factor. Then again getting into the graduation. Then later on everything a huge hurdle for the women from our communities. So these are the areas which we have to collectively work with. So we have to collaborate in certain areas with the organizations where we can pitch into certain facts and we can empower the women in certain areas. If we get into the villages, we see the girls from the Bahujan communities after completing the graduation, because of the financial assistance, they doesn't know. In spite of we having a overseas fellowship, they doesn't know how to get into those things. I seriously, when I work with in the field, I observe these facts. So these were the main concern areas. We have to set a goal, and the vision has to be very clear enough. There were many areas. Already few policies has been worked out to empower the women from the marginal communities, but that has been not coming into the streamline because of the lack of focus, lack of awareness. So if we, particularly if we take the vocational or skill development or, corporations or whatever it is, finance is one of the main important hurdles for us. So if we at least already the structure has been made in certain areas, if we focus on that thing and we work collectively to empower few targeted group of the women, where they will be getting or given a chance, they will be they will be leading into that. So these were the things which we have to be focused enough. We have to be collectively work with the government and organizations and certain kinds of groups. We have to set up an organization or a kind of institutions. We have to pull up at least numbers, maybe 20 or 50 or 100, and collectively we can concentrate and we can do certain kinds of things where they'll be getting education or they'll be getting empowered or some kind of business skills. Those areas we have to be focused enough. So that is also very important factor which I found in my research while I was working with the community.
True, absolutely. So education at all levels, primary, higher, and again, educating to make them financially independent and empowering them, understanding what are those areas, and working with state, true, to actually make sure all these plans are developed, because any independent organization, any one single NGO can only achieve so much. But if it comes from the government, then it can be for the whole state. That policy can be adopted for the whole state. So it is very important to be organized enough to work with the state to have these areas empowered. Again, I would like to ask the same question to Shantha Sinha ji or Manisha Banger ji. What should be the takeaway from this call, and what are the areas that we should be working on to make sure women, girls are educated, and to make Savithribai Phule proud?
Ma'am, please go ahead.
I think you're muted, Shantha Sinha ji.
Sorry. The list of aspirations and the menu is very, very long. One can go on. Now, let me tell you that I would take it up from in terms of entitlements and rights. That we are not asking for mercy, we are not asking for charity, we are asking for constitutional principles to be adhered to, which means we are asking for dignity. We are asking for freedom. We are, and I think government is bound to do everything that allows for dignity and for freedom. I think that should, and according to the Constitution and the Right to Education Act, education is linked to right to life. And there is no right to life without right to life with dignity. So I think we will have to be very clear that what we are demanding is a right to life with dignity, and education is indispensable for that. And all that they have promised in their enactments will have to be implemented to the T. Having said this, we should develop capacities to critique the government with facts and figures. Let me give you just one example. The government has a ridiculous scheme of Kalyana Lakshmi program. It's also called Shadi Mubarak program. This is incentivizing girls who are poor, who are SC, who are ST, who are BC, who are minority, whose family is earning less than 2 lakh rupees to get married after 18 years. And they pay 116 rupees for a girl to get married when she crosses 18. And we know the damage it has done to the lives of girls by incentivizing their marriage. We will have to critique the Shadi Mubarak program, this Kalyana Lakshmi program. Give 1 lakh rupees for a girl who wants to study, pursue education. The poor parents are not asking for charity and relief for wedding expenses. You are pushing this in their mind that this is what the poor want. What the poor actually want is an education of their girls. In fact, if they gave 1 lakh, they would send the children 1 lakh rupees to the moon. They will send them to Harvard University. So don't set our limits so low that your future is getting married when you're 18. Rubbish. Is that the future I will seek for my daughter, that she gets married when she's 18? Why is it so for the poor Bahujan children that you think that you should live happily ever after? And you know what marriage does? The greatest human right violation of a Dalit woman is in her marriage. I'm sorry, I can elaborate to you later. But let us critique this. In the last 5 years, under the Kalyana Lakshmi program, the government of Telangana spent 6,000 crores. It could have set up 10 universities with that money. So let's critique these programs. Let's critique the programs of, yes, I love the residential schools. I simply admire Praveen Kumar for what it is. But then define each residential school as a hub for 10 other schools around it. Let it become a resource school. Think out of the box. At the neglect of all other schools, you set up some schools. Why? We want all our children to be climbing Mount Everest. Why only 1 or 2? We want all our children to go to Ashoka University. We want all our children to go to Delhi University. We want all our children to be same as equal. I think we will have to ask for the sky. That is what Praveen Kumar also says. Don't ask for these little, kuti things. It doesn't work. Ask for big things, big chunks. There is this Kamla Nehru Polytechnic College, which is closed down for the last. The foundation stone was laid by Nehru. Then came Mrs. Gandhi, who extended. Then came Rajiv Gandhi, and now they want to take over that thing to run a private engineering college. It was a college that gave vocational skills, ITI training of the highest order in many things, electronics, pharmaceutical training to our children. And now the government says it has no money. It has money for Kalyan Lakshmi, but it doesn't have money to set education in the polytechnic colleges. What is this nonsense happening? I think we have to critique that. Reopen those colleges. It had a seat of 400 children residential program, and these children did so well. These girls did so well. Now it's closed. It's completely privatized. Why? I think we will have to sort of do good research and see how privatization is taking over. Tell the government you cannot close down schools. You cannot say this is unviable. And you will have to reopen education institutions. You have to set up higher education, make education free till as far as the Dalit girl would like to go. For examination fee, children are not able to take the 10th class board examination and intermediate board examination. Why should they pay exam fee? I don't understand. Why should they pay some 1,200 rupees, 1,500 rupees exam fee? Can't the government afford conducting of exam with its own resources? I think we will have to question, because it is a right of the child for education. I will not talk anymore, but simultaneously, I would think our families must be prepared to give support to our girls. And they are, as I told you, fighting. So don't make it even more difficult for them. We will have to sort of mobilize communities for girls' education. Last thing, the thing of distance and unsafe. Let me tell you, the argument of distance has been an argument to control the mobility of the girl. In the name of safety, they've issued curfews, allowed children not to move from one place to the other. When they have to work, then the issue of safety does not come. They're getting trafficked going from Jharkhand to Delhi and from Bihar to Pondicherry. Then there is no question of safety. This is, of course, got to do with the Brahminical patriarchy, I understand. But then let us not fall into the trap of arguments of safety. Arrange for buses. If a girl has to go to her school, which is about 10 kilometers, demand for transportation, demand for public services. Don't say that I must have a high school in my village. Say that make a bus go to the nearest high school and my daughter will go and study. So, I mean, these are some of the things I think we will have to talk. We will not want a control over a girl and her mobility. If a girl from some Adilabad wants to come to Hyderabad and study engineering, we will have to make it possible. Don't use the argument of safety and unsafety just to restrict the mobility of girls and her freedom. That's it. Thank you.
True, a very, very valid and important point. Because as you said, education is linked to dignity. Education is right to education is right to life, and government accountability has to be there. Government cannot make these kind of flimsy policies of giving money to get married instead of giving money to education, and rather allowing or making things accessible to poor. They cannot keep asking for 1,200 rupees fee to write a 10th class board exam or a 12th class board exam. That is completely unacceptable. And I think we definitely need to organize ourselves to make government accountable to do its job properly. Thank you so much. And Dr. Manisha, again, the same question.
I would request you to repeat the question because I kind of forgot. Or I got lost.
Sure. So given all these challenges,
may I'll need to leave another 5 minutes if you don't mind. I have another meeting to go into, so I will leave in 5 minutes.
Absolutely, I will. Yeah, I'll make it quick. What we were trying to say is, given all these challenges that we know right now, what should be the takeaway from this meeting? What should we be doing to overcome these challenges and make Savithribai Phule proud?
Okay, so basically two things. One is to understand our icons through our own intellectual brainstorming, thinking and deliberating and research and everything. Right now, whatever is being written, whether in Indian Express or any of these, because let us understand that Savithribai Phule or any of our icons has become known to or has reached the various corners of India. Today at an international forum, we are discussing her, celebrating her birthday. The state did not have any stake in this particular effort. Neither did the dominant class have any kind of They cannot claim to any kind of work in this area. On the contrary, they have taken out Savithribai and all our icons out of the syllabus, which they should have included almost 70 years ago. And things would have been much better. All these things which we are discussing today, we wouldn't have had to discuss and deliberate on it. So we have to understand our icons through us, and also not to understand our icons through them, through the dominant media or dominant class, the way they make us understand. That is very important thing to adhere to. Secondly, the concept of Bahujan autonomy has to go not only into the political domain, but each and every domain. Even when we talk about policy making, and we've already discussed, you have also kind of reiterated it in your own comments. So when we say about Bahujan autonomy, it's in the political realm. I'll give you one small example, and that you can apply to all the realms. So the people who are at the helm of the affairs, who are charting out things, who are given the responsibility of implementing the constitution, all the safeguards, all the policies, whatever, and which if we pressurize them, it will be they who will take the decision whether to do it or not. We can put a pressure, we can protest, we can go write memorandums, write everything, and many people are doing that. But Bahujan autonomy is something which means we will think, we will decide, we will say, and we will also be the implementers, and that is where representation comes. Because even if many people and organizations, whether they are media organization or political organizations, they seem to be speaking for us, but they do not have any hang of the aspirations of the SC, ST, BC or the women population in general. They do not have any kind of a knack, or even if they have the hang, they are not able to show it or implement it in the right way. For example, here we have the UP elections going on. It happens before every election. People are talking about how the healthcare was compromised, how corona devastated, how many deaths occurred, healthcare, this, that. We're talking about education that should happen in Punjab and all the wherever the assembly elections are going. And out of that, the most progressive, so-called progressive of the party, which many people call it as a lesser evil, what is their understanding of what has to be done for the scheduled caste or the Dalit? That is shown in the in their reaching out is going to a scheduled caste house home and eating food with them.
Yeah,
and that is the kind of understanding that they have. They have no inkling whatsoever where the community stands, where they want to go, where the women are there. We have the statistics. They have no inkling. And let me tell you, if Mr. Rahul Gandhi from that particular party, they were the progenitors of this particular Nautanki drama. And the same thing as is emulated by Aam Aadmi Party and BJP, of course. So what I want to tell you is that as a class, they are exactly at the same page and at the same level. And this is what the Bahujan SC/ST people have to understand, the political leaders have to understand. Contrary to this, when we see what is happening in Tamil Nadu, Mr. Stalin, MK Stalin is implementing, he has made it NEET exam. He has debarred that exam. Why? Because the SC/ST women students are not able, women, not only women students, but the male students also are not able to even appear for the exam. Forget about clearing it. And that is why we had Dr. Anita give up her life. We have examples of Rohit Vemula and many more institutional murders which have occurred. So what I basically mean to say is that Bahujan autonomy in each and every realm, understanding them and not getting carried away by their dramas and their false words of restitution, the false words of assurances. And we have seen, because even intellectual people among the Bahujans have got swayed, and that is where then the damage occurs. If we are aware, if we resist continuously and we work on our own model and we work on our own areas, that is even better than for short-term gains and short-term assurances falling prey to all this stupidity and nonsense. So that is what I feel. These are the two areas that we need to strengthen ourselves upon.
absolutely. Understanding our icons through our own lens is very important. And as you rightly pointed out, Bahujan autonomy in all realms should be there. We, even though we are educated, if we are not able to agitate appropriately and organize ourselves, then the education that we have gotten is not beneficial to our other people. So we have to make sure that our education is beneficial by agitating appropriately and organizing too. And as you said, Bahujan autonomy is important in all realms. So now I will open the forum for questions from audience, and I already see I already see a question for Dr. Manisha, but I would like to take any questions for Dr. Shantha Sinha ji, because she said she has to leave. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand or type the question in the chat.
Smita, I think I'll also have to leave immediately. In fact, I won't be able to take the questions which has been addressed to me because I have some hospital commitments. Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Jai Bhim to everyone.
Jai Bhim. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
May I also thank you? I mean, I'll have to leave. Please forgive me. And thank you, Dr. Manisha. Thank you, Smita. And thank you, Vinayakala. I hope we keep in touch. I think we are all on the same page and we have to fight, struggle, study and struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining and thank you for giving your valuable inputs, both of you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been almost 1.5 hours. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not realize that 4 questions would go for 1.5
hours.
But it's been a very constructive discussion. Thank you for all your inputs. Yeah, brilliant. Yes. I can't hear you. I really can't hear you. There is, the voice is,
I think it was background noise, Smita.
Okay.
Please ignore
Got
that. Yeah, somebody's background noise, that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Vinayakala ji, do you have a little bit of time for questions from audience? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, any questions from audience? I think people are, people are giving good comments, but I just want to see if there are any questions from audience. If not, I think we can call it a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, so probably we can take Dalit's question. If Vinayakala ji, if you'd like to throw some light.
Yeah. So what Dolly asked is, Dr. Manisha Banger identified some of the barriers Bahujan men pose to women leadership. How does she or other panelists propose Bahujan men hold themselves accountable to this behavior?
In fact, it is a very controversial question.
It is,
to
but
be honest.
I guess we have to, we have to address these questions.
Yes.
Because it's important. It's for women to get empowered. I feel it is the responsibility of women themselves first, but again, it is also the responsibility of men too. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, like here she was talking about the Bahujan men, in fact, I will take few examples. If we take the media, right? A man from the upper caste, do certain things with the women from the underprivileged or the other women, that has been not that much focused, right? I mean, like, I am seriously taking from many perspectives of the higher education institutions as well here. But when a man from the Bahujan communities, like, get into certain things, maybe a sexual abuse, maybe something where it is connected with the kind of an exploitation with the women, has been portrayed in a very negative manner in the forefront of the media. Like, this is the one of the thing which we have to, not exactly, I'm not biased here, we have to understand one fact, that there is a kind of different kind of exploitation which the people want to put and pitch into our own kind of situations. So here, I do accept being from the women community. There were many things which was happening. Even Manisha was saying the same fact, like, chalo rakenge women ko, like, those were the things which in the areas we are trying to come in forefront. But like, talking about this thing is also very much needed. And we have to take certain facts. When we take the Priyanka Reddy's rape incident in Hyderabad, like, how the like, many has get into and spoke in that regard. But when Tekulakshmi, the women from the same Bahujan communities, has been raped and no voice has been raised. So if you take the men from the Bahujan communities, it is also a different kind of bias which was happening. Okay, so taking into these points, we have to think little bit broaderly, and we have to discuss these areas. Yeah, there were certain kinds of behavioral issues as well with the men from the Bahujan communities.
True. And what I have seen even in Nirbhaya cases, a girl from Brahmin community, when she gets raped, there is a national outcry. At the same time, when girls from Badayu are raped and murdered, we don't see the same outcry unless it is overcome by our own, unless it is highlighted by Bahujan women. So, and it takes a long time for them to come out. So definitely there are stereotypes which have to be broken, especially by our men. They have to overcome these stereotypes and think out of the box as well. Definitely, yeah. Any other questions? And thank you so much, Nikala ji, for bringing that point. It's a very important and valid point, because we see physical abuse, we see sexual abuse, we see financial abuse, we see emotional abuse, and all these topics are not discussed. But Bahujan women are overcoming all these abuses, even to get educated and to get empowered. Overcoming these stereotypes is not an easy task. So thank you for bringing up that point. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one question for Vinayakala ji, because you're mostly worked in the education sector and very close to the educational institutions. Most of the Bahujan Samaj is not familiar with our foundation and our ideology, basically what kind of works my Savithribai did for the community, right? So was there any attempt to keep this history and accomplishments of our Bahujan women leaders, especially into academics, right? Like an academic subject. Was there any effort made? And because most of the Bahujan Samaj, they grew up without learning anything, unless you go to some universities, and then you have a family member who is like progressive and going toward these movements. Many women are away from this ideology, and they are not familiar with anybody, right? In fact, like many women, Bahujan women, when they come to my home, they look at Savithribai Phule and Jyotiba Phule photo, and they ask, "Who is this lady?" You know. So I mean, and they have completed masters and thing, and then they're not familiar with who is she, right? So so my question is, to sum up, what kind of effort that was made to keep our history into the books, I mean academics?
Yeah, it is. In fact, it is very unfortunate, like many of the people from the Bahujan communities, not only men, not only women, it's also, like men and youth doesn't know about the, like our history, like why we are today like this. Okay, for that, there is, to be honest, there is no point of, like blaming our own children. But the main kind of Brahminical perspectives is that there was a strategical exclusion which has happened of our icons. That's what I was talking about, Savithribai Phule initially, like in spite of she working for the community, and she was working for the Brahmin women, and like she was the first women teacher, and she is nowhere she has been portrayed into the curriculum, right? So recently, like the things has been changed, and because of social media, because of like online media, because of the websites, we started we started portraying our own leaders. We started talking about the thing. So that is the first point I would like to say in this regard, is that is the fact from the state perspectives, like very strategically there was an exclusion of our leaders from the curriculum. This is the main hidden agenda of the state, right? The second point is that, yeah, generally, because I closely work with the girls and like the youth in my area of the motto of the work where I'm working here. Like if a teacher is there with them, like who is from the Bahujan perspectives, definitely like influence them in certain areas, and by that they were getting into the things. But yeah, exactly, when they are getting into higher educations, at that time only they were learning about our icons. That is very unfortunate. This is a very important area where we have to work on collectively. That is very, today my son is there because we always talk about Ambedkar and all those things. He's a, like this, he's a kind of speaker we cannot even imagine, like, but where our own children from the village background, they were not getting focused into that kind of area, that how they are getting exploited in this casteist society. But yeah, but as of now, little bit they were learning, but much things has to be done ahead. And one of the main factors is that they were very much focused in this popular culture, and again the things were getting moved away what actual reality is. That is one of the, again, another factor. So
Yeah,
it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, in fact.
Thank you for bringing up that point. Any more questions? Rajit, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions from
Otherwise, you can close it.
any of the participants? And I think you're live streaming on Facebook. Do you see any questions or comments on Facebook?
Yeah, just a second. Let me check that.
Okay.
No, nothing as of now.
Nothing as of now. Okay, great. So thank you so much to all the panelists and to all the participants for joining this session. And as all the panelists have mentioned, it's really high time that we have to work together. We have to organize in many areas, and definitely agitate appropriately, make the state accountable to make sure it's doing its duties, and work towards the upliftment of society, so that tomorrow we will make Savithribai Phule proud for helping us getting educated, and we making the use of that education in a positive way for our next generation. I think that's what is most important. Thank you so much for attending the session, and I look forward to working with you all and being connected and taking this Karwa forward. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
so
you,
much.
Smita ji, for moderating. So on behalf of our big family, Global NRI Forum, we would like to thank all the panel speakers today, and Smita ji for moderating. So Vinayakala, Shantha Sinha garu, and then Manisha garu. So thank you very much for your time and your inputs into the discussion today. So with that, we are going to conclude today's session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.